The World Golf Hall of Fame is back in its original home in Pinehurst, North Carolina. We have the director of the World Golf Hall of Fame, Mike Trostel, with us next on Paradise in the Pines. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. And welcome to another episode of Paradise in the Pines. We're joined today by the director of the World Golf Hall of Fame, Mike Trostel. Mike, man, it's great to see you.
Phil, thanks for having me here. This is great.
The World Golf Hall of Fame, it opened just before the 2024 U.S. Open. You couldn't have asked for a better time for that to happen. What culminated with the World Golf Hall of Fame leaving Florida? It was originally here many years ago, went to Florida. What got it back to Pinehurst?
Yeah, I think just probably most helpful to take people all the way back to the beginning. So a little over 50 years ago, 1974, the World Golf Hall of Fame is founded in Pinehurst. It opens up in Pinehurst, kind of right by course number 2, behind that fourth green, fifth tee. It's here until early 1990s, late 80s, early 90s, then moves to Florida and was down there it was signed a 25-year lease from 1998 to 2023. And as it was kind of getting later in that process, the Hall of Fame board got together and it was pretty clear it wasn't going to stay. They weren't going to extend that lease down in Florida. And they had a couple options. One was just to do away with a physical Hall of Fame, make it an all virtual Hall of Fame. And that didn't really sit well with the board. So then there were some discussions about where the Hall of Fame would move to. And with the USGA at that time, building our second headquarters down here, right in that main driveway into Pinehurst in the clubhouse in number 2, there was an administration building, and then there was also a building next door where on the bottom floor was the USGA Experience, and then the top floor, we're kind of exploring what those options would be. Maybe a media center for the championships that comes in, maybe some sort of larger meeting space. And then Mike Wan, the USGA CEO, said, what if we make that the Hall of Fame, right? If we reduce the size of the Hall of Fame, we bring over the member locker room, which is the most popular part of the Hall of Fame when it was down in St. Augustine, bring that up and have that be the Hall of Fame, bring it back to its roots. So that's kind of where it started, 21, 22. And then, as you mentioned, we opened just before the U.S. Open in 2024. I had an awesome event. And then, of course, being here for the U.S. Open. And then the induction ceremony that year as well was spectacular. How was the first year? You concluded that, U.S. Open in last June. And as we get into almost the fall, the end of summer here, how was the first year of the World Golf Hall of Fame return? It was a great first year. I think by any measure, it was truly extraordinary. I think, first of all, the support that we've gotten from the community here in Pinehurst, Southern Pines, this area has been off the charts. I mean, people are here for a reason. They love the game of golf. So certainly we get everyone who comes in to play at the golf courses at Pinehurst and in Southern Pines at the resort. But I think we had so many people who just loved the game and came in and they would tell us, I'm going to come in one day and look for an hour and come back another day and look for another 2 hours. Yeah. There's so much to explore there. So that support from the community really made all the difference. And in terms of visitor numbers, we got about 30,000 people from that May date that we opened all the way through the end of the year. And we were closed for a number of weekends just to make some final tweaks on it. So if you bring that out over the course of a year, that we were doing about 2 or 2.5 times the amount of attendance that they were getting down in St. Augustine. So clearly, if you build it in the right spot, they will come. Location. Exactly right. And St. Augustine, it was a big building. It was right off 95. And I think the hope is that it would become a huge destination. And I think by the end, it was just clear it was not the right spot for it. But bringing it to the cradle of golf in America, the home of golf here in Pinehurst, clearly it was the right decision, and it's shown that out. So now we're up over 55,000 people in our first year plus, and it's not just the community who's coming out, but having the U.S. Kids group coming in when they're coming into town, the North and South events, right? Obviously the U.S. Open last year, get an influx of people. So it's been great. Pinehurst it's year round, but I think we certainly see probably the biggest push of people between mid-March and mid-November. And just to orient people, Mike, you have the Golf House Pinehurst campus, you have the USGA Administrative Building as you look at it, and then you have the World Golf Hall of Fame and the USGA Experience connected. But talk about the USGA Experience. That's really the first thing that people will go into when they walk into that building to get upstairs to the World Golf Hall of Fame. Yeah, when you walk in the building, if you're a visitor, the first thing you see is that USGA Experience. So there's an orientation table, and you get to learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do as an organization, and then some gallery spaces on the left and right. So you come into the left, and that's the science of golf. So you understand what effect altitude has on the golf ball, why there are dimples on a golf ball, how greens are constructed, things like that. And then across the hall on the other side, it's all about USGA championships. When the circus comes to town, what's everything that has to happen to put on a U.S. Open or a U.S. Girls Junior? And I think for people here in the Moore County area in Pinehurst, they understand that, right? Because it doesn't just happen in a week. It takes a long time to come in here, years in advance to make that build, the transportation plans, to build up the grandstand, everything that goes into corporate hospitality, and put on a championship that just lasts 4 days. But in reality, it's years in the making.
And what's really cool, you mentioned all that infrastructure, all that organization has to take place well before, and that's Leighton Schwab and Reg Jones, all those guys that take care of that. But as an anchor site, important that Duke Energy can come in and plug in a bunch of stuff, literally plug in some things. So like when we come back in 2029, you don't have to worry about all those generators. That's the benefit of being an anchor site. Explain, if you could, because I think some people say, anchor site, what does that mean? I mean, yeah, we get to host U.S. Opens in 29, 35, 41, and 47. Yes, I memorized the dates. But again, what does anchor site mean?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, 100% accurate there. So what it means is now that the USGA, they can work, the three anchor sites, first of all, Pinehurst, Pebble Beach, and Oakmont, three classic U.S. Open sites, amazing venues, amazing golf courses that we would be going back to anyway. But by naming them anchor sites and by going back there a little more often, as you mentioned with Pinehurst, it's approximately every 5 or 6 years going through until 2047. It enables both us, the state of North Carolina, Pinehurst Resort, to invest in the course and what's going to make for a better fan experience, what's going to make a better player experience. As you mentioned with, putting underground power lines in, by building maybe a permanent media center, by having some of these things that you wouldn't invest in if you didn't know if the U.S. Open was coming back, or maybe it was only coming back every 12 or 15 years. So those investments that we're able to make just make for a better overall experience when the U.S. Open does come back into town in 2029.
I should probably explain, as we're almost 8 minutes into this podcast, you're wearing purple gloves, Mike. Not because you're a James Madison fan, where I went to school, which is purple and gold, or Minnesota Vikings, go Dukes, or Minnesota Vikings. You're wearing the gloves because you brought some artifacts to display here today. So I think what's really cool as we go through this, there's some great stories. And I mean, it's amazing because that's your job. You're a storyteller, and just archiving the history of this great game. So you brought three things with you today. You want to start with Bryson's wedge? Sure.
So just to give a little bit of an overview, the USGA Golf Museum and Library goes back, almost 100 years. Goes back to 1936, and we've been collecting for a long, long time. We have nearly 100,000 artifacts in the museum, and with the Hall of Fame, with now that coming part of the fold, we've got more than 3,000 artifacts on display in those 170 lockers dedicated to the Hall of Famers. Some are donated, some are on loan. But what we wanted to do here was a little show and tell with some of the things that we have. If you come into the USGA Experience and World Golf Hall of Fame, what you might see.
And you know what, not to interrupt you, but I think it's really cool because it's not just golf artifacts. I mean, these are like personal things that these golfers had, they're mementos, or just things that were personal to them that have maybe nothing to do with golf. That I think even tells an even cooler story.
Yeah, absolutely right. So you have clubs, you have trophies related to major tournament wins, but then you have, for example, Larry Nelson's Army jacket that he has because it's meaningful to him.
Yeah.
Lloyd Mangrum, who was a great player in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, his Purple Heart Medal from his service in the military. So it is these things from someone's childhood or their personal lives that were meaningful to them. And that's when we ask someone to make a contribution to their locker. What's the story you want to tell about yourself? This is your story. It is your career, but it's also your life. What do you want people to take away from your story? And Bryson DeChambeau, not a Hall of Famer, at least not yet, now as a two-time major champion. But what we do have here is something we keep downstairs in that championships gallery. I think for most people, if you're in Pinehurst, you would have seen the 2024 U.S. Open, the conclusion. Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, certainly one for the ages, one of the top 5 or 10 U.S. Opens in history. Bryson hits it in that bunker just short right on 18 and makes an incredible up and down. Well, it was using this sand wedge right here.
Was that 54, 55-foot shot?
Yeah, exactly right. 55 yards.
Yeah, 55 yards. I'm sorry,
So you can see right here, and on the back, you'll see it says 56 degrees, but it's actually bent to 55. And you can look at it right here, and you can actually see
It looks pretty worn.
Yeah, it's pretty worn.
It's not a shiny, like you would think of a new club. I mean, how old is this club? How long did he use it?
Well, sometimes with these clubs, they take the finish off. They don't finish it, so it gets a little rusty, and that'll help the ball spin a little bit more.
Really? I had no idea.
But on the bottom of it, you can see there's some AstroTurf, right? So the AstroTurf comes not only from him working on the range, but if those of you who remember and subscribe to Bryson's YouTube channel, he did a little hole-in-one challenge over his house. And it took him, whatever it was, 30 or 40 days to do it.
Didn't a friend of his make it before him, or a friend had made it with the club too?
That's right. And I think it took Bryson a while to actually do it, but it was with this club. So not only is this club one of the ones that hit one of the most iconic shots in U.S. Open history, to seal the deal at Pinehurst in 24 also was the club that did the hole-in-one challenge for him.
And remarking too that the grip is I mean, it's a thick grip. I mean, it's not what you would expect.
It's a massive grip, and for those who followed Bryson's career since he was an amateur, winning the U.S. Amateur, he uses single-length irons. So this is a sand wedge. It is the exact same length as his 5-iron or any other club in his bag, and he uses these Jumbo Max grips. Again, the same size on every one, so the club's not turning over as much.
Yeah.
He is the mad scientist, constantly tinkering to see what can happen. It's paid dividends for him with 2 U.S. Open titles.
You're right. An amazing shot. And I think one story that, I don't know if you were at Pinehurst that day, but when he came to put the plaque in the ground, John Bodenheimer, one of your colleagues with the USGA, said that he saw him at the Masters the previous day, where he didn't have the best day in the world against Rory, who, sealed the career Grand Slam, obviously, that day. But not John, but Bryson said to Mr. Bodenheimer, "I'll see you tomorrow in Pinehurst." Mm-hmm. And Mr. Bodenheimer told that story before Bryson came and spoke before that dedication. And he won me over. Not that I wasn't a fan before. I've always loved his work and dedication. But I think that story won a lot of fans, that he decided to come to Pinehurst and honor that commitment to honor this club and his moment that will go down in history.
And many of us who were involved in the event and in the planning of it, as we saw the leaderboard coming down the stretch on Saturday into Sunday at the Masters, well, if he wins the Masters, is this still going to happen tomorrow?
Right.
And unfortunately for Bryson, it didn't work out that way. But Rory did get his revenge and got that career Grand Slam. But Bryson, after what was a pretty heartbreaking day, for him to still come here and be a part of it. He was in tears that day, talking about what it meant for him to not only be a U.S. Open champion once, winning at Winged Foot in 2020, but now twice, and talked about his dad's influence on the game and what it meant to win at 2 of the cathedrals in the game is Winged Foot and Pinehurst.
And pretty cool too that he's from Dallas. Mr. Dedman, the owner of Pinehurst Resort, is from Dallas. Their connection to SMU. I mean, I get in chills just thinking about that and think of that connection. And again, it's another story, another historic part of a great story and legacy that he's going to have tied to Pinehurst forever.
Absolutely, and I think that SMU Dallas connection in Payne Stewart, right? The first U.S. Open played at Pinehurst in 1999. Payne being an SMU grad from 1979. So the thread continues. Bryson wore the flat cap, in honor of Mr. Hogan, but certainly Payne Stewart was an inspiration there too. And
even the nice touch by the USGA with the pin flags that day, having Payne, that was amazing. I've asked Janine Driscoll, who's brand communicates for USGA, can I get one of those? I've yet to get it, so I think they're a pretty rare commodity, Mike.
They are. We try and do some special touches like that. And I think the history is so important to the USGA and to the U.S. Open. So if it's a certain hole location or a big moment in the championship, we try and bring that back to make it even more special for the 156 players who are playing in that year's championship.
You said something interesting when you talked about Bryson's club that you obviously have possession of now. He's not in the Hall of Fame, but obviously you're collecting artifacts and people that are in the Hall of Fame that you might add to that locker in the World Golf Hall of Fame. But do you actively collect things like this, anticipating one day Bryson may be in the Hall of Fame, and kind of trying to almost grab history as it's happening?
Yeah, it's a good question, and we try and get an artifact from every USGA champion. So last weekend, recently, Mega Gane won the U.S. Women's Amateur at Bandon Dunes. So she had an amazing comeback. She was 4 down to 7 to play in her semifinal match. She went on to win and then won the championship match. We're getting that uniform, that outfit that she wore in that semifinal match. So the U.S. Amateur will look to get an artifact, whether it's a club or something significant, and we'll do that for all 15 of the championships. This year, what we started to do as well is reach out to all the major champions. So Scotty Scheffler winning 2 of them, Rory winning the Masters, and then J.J. Spaun, which would get something anyway from him, having won the U.S. Open, just to start to stockpile those key artifacts, those key moments and key mementos from those championships, because certainly for someone like Scotty or Rory, they're almost certainly going to be in the Hall of Fame someday.
Sure.
And I think the thought for us is, maybe the next exhibit for us is a career Grand Slam exhibit where we have something from the 6 players who have won the career Grand Slam and who can get something from Rory.
Yeah.
So Rory has given a commitment to give us the gap wedge he used to hit the shot in the playoff hole that set up a birdie to win and beat Justin Rose. So he was still using it as of last talking. We're hoping that'll come in later this year and we can have it on display at some point.
Let me ask you this: have you ever asked a player for an artifact and go, "No, I'm keeping that in my trophy case at home"? Has anybody denied you?
Sometimes some players will say, I just won the biggest event of my life using these clubs.
I want to hang on to it for a little bit.
If we're asking for an iron or even a putter especially is one that's tough to let go of. JJ Spahn being a good example this year. He makes that amazing birdie putt on the final hole at Oakmont to win there. We'd asked JJ for his lab putter and he said, not never, but not right now. It's one I'm gonna continue to use in the rest of the playoffs and into the Ryder Cup.
And maybe the Ryder Cup, yeah. You mentioned earlier, we were talking about Bryson, talking about the tie to Payne Stewart. You have something from Payne that you brought here for show and tell as well.
We do. So Payne, we know, is such a important part of the fabric of the Pinehurst community, winning here in 1999 in dramatic fashion. So we have a big exhibit that's going to be opening this September. Working with Tracy Stewart and the Stewart family, they have loaned us more than 100 artifacts from Payne's personal life, his playing career, and then a few things from the plane crash as well that tragically took his life in October of 1999. So one of the things we have here today that'll be on display is Payne's harmonica right here. And Payne, as you know, was not only a great golfer, but also in a band. Jake Trout and the Flounders, or Mark Lai and Peter Jacobson. So he was a character on and off the course. Obviously, an amazing career with 3 major championships, 2 U.S. Opens, and of course the one here in 1999, 1 PGA championship. He played in 5 Ryder Cups, 11 PGA Tour wins, but had this great sense of style about him as well. And that's the name of the exhibit, Style.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, style and substance, for Payne. So we're going to have 4 or 5 outfits of Payne on display, everything from his NFL outfits to some of the things that he wore during the 1999 U.S. Open, all the way through things like a harmonica, things like a #1 dad shirt that his kids made for him, and then his U.S. Open trophies. So it is a variety of artifacts that will be coming in, and we think will be very popular, both with people coming into Pinehurst Resort from all around the world, and certainly people right here in the community.
I will definitely be there on day 1. And so you say that starts in September, and that will go through when?
It'll be a year. So it'll open on Friday, September 12th, and that'll go through the next year, September 13th. So it'll be open for a year, and we're really excited about it.
I'm excited about it too. We got one more item to look at. I think people that see this on camera already kind of almost recognize the, I don't know if it's an ugly shirt, but it's a winning shirt, and we know that for sure. And we think about Justin Leonard, who made that incredible putt, but this is actually Ben Crenshaw's shirt from that Ryder Cup.
Yeah, well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And for the 12 players in that Ryder Cup team, it was a beautiful shirt on a beautiful day. When they started, they were down 10-6 going into the final day, day 3.
Well, when Ben said, "I have a feeling," you think he was talking about the shirt? Or?
Well, it's a great backstory. President George W. Bush addressed the team that evening before the final round and gave this pump you up, rah-rah speech, and then they go out and played one of the best days in Ryder Cup history in the singles matches. And these iconic shirts, it's certainly a fashion statement when you look at it. And when you get to see a little bit closer, they're all portraits of USA Ryder Cup teams. And Crenshaw is a big history guy. So I wanted everyone that year to appreciate, hey, this isn't, the Ryder Cup didn't start 5 years ago or 10 years ago. This goes all the way back to the 1920s. And to know you're not just playing for yourselves, you're playing for your entire country and hundreds of players who've come before you. So this is Captain Crenshaw's shirt, the one that he wore at the country club on that fateful day in 1999 with Justin Leonard making that incredible putt on the 17th hole.
So, in Ben's locker, what other things would you find in his locker?
Yeah, so he won the Payne Stewart Award from the PGA Tour. back in 2001, which just it basically says how great of a guy that Ben Crenshaw is. But his Ryder Cup trophy is in there from 1999. For Ben, obviously, that was a major accomplishment in his life, even though he didn't play on the team. For him to captain and be a part of that, to win that for his country. Crenshaw is a two-time Masters champion, so we have a couple things from his 84 and 1995 Masters wins. It's really a full locker showing a little bit everything of what he did in his career.
Your job as a director of the World Golf Hall of Fame, you have to know a lot about a lot of things. How do you keep that in your head and tell these stories and understand the importance of that? How long have you been doing it? How passionate are you about what you do, telling the history of this great game?
Well, extremely passionate. I came out of college in 2006 as an intern at the USGA Museum and kind of moved my way up through there. As the historian and curator, I became the museum director, and I'm now in this role leading the World Golf Hall of Fame. These artifacts, these stories are so important and I think so crucial in getting people to appreciate the history of the game, but also inspiring the next generation of folks to come through, that they can come in and see the lockers of the great players who have played the game and hopefully take a little something away that they can, whether it's a quote that was said, whether it was an inspirational highlight, a photo, an artifact that may speak to them. And everyone's a little different, right? Everyone connects with something a little different, a different player, a different artifact. So for me to have the honor of being in this role, at least for a little bit, right? You can only carry the baton for so long. So while I have the baton with the Hall of Fame to be able to kind of oversee this great institution and be a part of this, it's an honor and something that I'm certainly very excited about. What
about Tiger Woods telling his story? What is being collected? What is going to be the legacy, the story that's going to be told? Because we're getting into generations now that maybe have never seen Tiger play. Some of these players that we see today, like Miles Russell and the Koiven kid that goes to Auburn or will be going to Auburn, and these other people that know of Tiger, they've seen the highlights. But when you're there watching him in his heyday and 97 and all these tournaments that he won in epic fashion, how do you impress upon the younger generations that, like I love Jack Nicklaus, but I saw that as a kid. But I mean, I didn't really see Ben Hogan and all these others, but I understand their history. How do you tell that story to these generations that are on these phones all the time and, get them to understand the history?
Yeah, and I think what you want to try and do is connect something, right? Something that can be timeless, something that stops someone in their tracks and says, wow, that's cool. And I think for Tiger, it's his record is just so crazy, bonkers, right? To win 3 straight U.S. Juniors, to win 3 consecutive U.S. Amateurs, then go on to have the professional career that he did. You mentioned 1997, he wins the Masters, Hello World. Yeah. He wins the U.S. Open by 15 strokes in 2000 at Pebble Beach. Right. So when you go into Tiger's locker, it's clear how important his USGA history is. He has the replica Havemeyer Trophy, that's his own in there. I think for him, being able to go through 312 players, 2 rounds of stroke play, 6 rounds of match play, to win that 3 years in a row, it's an accomplishment. You never say never, but I feel pretty safe.
The odds of that are just got to be insane.
It's insane, right? To be able to do that, and clearly that was a forerunner of what was going to come in 97 at the Masters, 2000, and certainly beyond that, all the way up through 2008 on the broken leg at Torrey Pines, 2019 at the Masters. The other thing we have there, we have a shirt and his trophy that he won at the U.S. Open in 2000. And I think for him, you see, it's funny. Some of it's a little bit of a time capsule. You go back and see these vertical stripes and some of the shirts that have the long sleeves past the elbow. But to go back to 2000 and to impress upon, those who weren't watching it live, for someone to win any tournament by 8 shots, 10 shots, 12 shots, 15 shots in the case of Tiger, to do it in a major championship it's never been done before, right? There have been hundreds of major championships played going back to 1860 in the Open Championship. And it doesn't take too much to get this next generation to say with Tiger Woods, like, wow, this is incredible. I'm really interested in understanding, what he did in his career. And for players, you mentioned, a Koiven, a Miles Russell. What can they take from that to, hopefully will be a great career for them going forward as well?
This is going to sound like a really bizarre question, and I just thought about it as researching this topic and being able to talk to you on this podcast. Have you thought about having like a World Golf Fame section for like iconic golf movies and artifacts from those, from like Tin Cup and, Happy Gilmore 2 just came out. So it's like, okay, so what would you get from that? The Bruins jersey? Is there any thought of that? Again, it was just a bizarre question, but I had to ask it.
No, not bizarre. I think totally reasonable. I think golf movies certainly resonate with golfers and golf fans. So putting the Hall of Fame aside for a second, the Hall of Fame is mainly focused on, right now, those 170 of the most, influential and impactful figures in the game. But the USGA Golf Museum and Library, we collect everything that has to do with golf, right? Major moments. So we have things like the Moon Club that Alan Shepard used on the surface of the moon in the 1970s. What we also have is Happy Gilmore's putter from the first movie that we have in our archives. We had an exhibit probably about 7 or 8 years ago now of golf movie posters through the years, going all the way back to the 1950s and 60s. Caddyshack was in there as well. So I think when golf crosses with popular culture, that's when we collect artifacts. U.S. presidents, we have an amazing collection from going all the way back to William Howard Taft in 1909 up through President Eisenhower, Gerald Ford, President Clinton, President Obama, even President Trump. We have something from there. So it doesn't necessarily have to be PGA Tour winners, LPGA major champions to get in there. So something
for everybody.
Something on everybody. Golf and film is certainly something that we want. So when they come through the museum, they get the full experience and understand what golf in America has been like and where it crosses with popular culture. You
mentioned earlier about the Hall of Fame inductions. And so we had the one here in 2024 for the U.S. Open. It's going to happen again a couple more times. It's going to happen again in Pinehurst in 2029. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so excited to be coming back here in Pinehurst in 2029. And we actually just announced a couple weeks ago the 2027 will be our next induction ceremony. That'll be going over to St. Andrews in Scotland the week of the Open Championship in 2027. And the induction ceremony happens every other year. Now, you're doing the math, 2024, 2027. We skipped something here.
Yeah.
But what we're trying to do is get it on cycle with the U.S. Opens at Pinehurst. So off the top of your head, you know them, 2029, 35, 41, 47. So every 6 years.
Yeah.
So the last one being here in 24, we wanted to get on that odd year cycle. So every time that the U.S. Open is coming here, we wanted to have an induction ceremony at the home of the Hall of Fame. So we'll have one here in 2029.
Yeah.
And then going forward, as we mentioned, 35, 41, and 47. So something we're very excited about.
You don't know who those are, but I mean, who would be some of the likely candidates perhaps in 2029 that whatever committee or whatever is going to kind of mull over and make those determinations? Who might be some of the players that might be considered?
Yeah, so as you look ahead, it's funny because the Golf Hall of Fame has an age limit. Almost no other Sports Hall of Fame does, because golfers never retire. like football, maybe other than Tom Brady, football, baseball, hockey, basketball, you kind of age out by 40, something like that. You're not going to see. But with golf, certainly with the PGA Tour champions, players can play for a long time. So our cutoff is age 45. So once you turn 45, you're eligible. Or if you've retired and haven't played competitively for 3 or more years, then you become eligible as well. So you see that a little bit more on the women's side if they decide to hang it up early, maybe start a family, something like that. So in 2029, Inbee Park is a possibility. It won't be 45, but she's retired competitively, at least as of now.
Yeah.
Suzanne Pedersen on the list on the men's side. Justin Rose, who's certainly in the news now and will be with the Ryder Cup coming up.
Yes, he will be.
Adam Scott, Sergio Garcia, all major champion. Wow. Dustin Johnson will be 2029. He'll be 45 or 46 by that point, so he'll be in there. So yeah, by the time
I'm feeling really old now, right?
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe when you think about those players that they're actually eligible for the World Golf Hall of Fame. That they've been around that long and they've played hundreds of PGA Tour events and have all these major championship and Players Championship wins. So there should be some great classes when we come back to Pinehurst in 29.
Lastly, days, hours of the World Golf Hall of Fame is open, and how can we learn more on the website?
Open 7 days a week, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. other than major holidays, so Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. So check the schedule for that. But otherwise, we're open every day, and you can go to the website. WorldGolfHallOfFame.org. You can go to USGA.org. and get some information there as well. So anywhere you go, we'll have information. Would love to have people come by. For those who live in Moore County, might be beneficial to wait the first Monday of every month. You get in for free.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you're a USGA member, you get in for free at any time.
That's right. And you can go by the USGA Experience and join the USGA, correct?
Exactly right. Yeah. So we have some great welcome ambassadors that would welcome you in and as you said, support the game and come limitless to the World Golf Hall of Fame. And kids under 12 are also free. So it's a great visitor experience. You can come in and spend a half an hour, 45 minutes. You can come in and spend a full day and still not see everything that we have to offer. So I think it's a great deal with the membership too, because you can come back as much as you want and do a row of lockers every time.
It's an amazing experience. I highly encourage everybody. I mean, you'll go there multiple times, whether you live in Moore County, California, the UK. It is an amazing experience. I remember when Mike Wine, when they opened up Golf House Pinehurst, he said coming here was like coming home. Yeah. And the USGA being here, having their second headquarters, we appreciate the long history that this destination, Pinehurst Resort, the Devon family, the Tufts have had with the USGA. It's an amazing history. It will continue, and we appreciate everything you do to procure it and to tell it. And Mike Trostel, who's the director of the World Golf Hall of Fame, we appreciate your time. I'd shake your hand, but the purple gloves, you don't want to touch these grimy hands. But thank you for bringing this. The Payne Stewart display starts in September. We look forward to that.
Phil, thank you so much, and thanks for everything that you do as well.
Our pleasure. Well, if you want to learn more about tourism in Moore County and the World Golf Hall of Fame, you can go to our website, which is homeofgolf.com. Want to know more about our videos and watch this podcast? Go to our YouTube channel, which is Home of American Golf. This is Paradise in the Pines, and we'll see you next time.